Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Tembi.
Good evening, Pastor Todd. How are you today?
I'm all right. Thank you. By God's grace, we're all okay. And we're happy to be here together with our guests to
Yes,
start this program that will go for 8 days, isn't it? Or 8 nights, I would say.
8 nights. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Let me just switch this off. Busi, I'm going to switch off. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our nightly conversations. My name is Tembi. I'm Cornerstone Counseling Coordinator, a department in the South England Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists. And my co-host tonight is Pastor Todd Friars, Stewardship Director in the same conference. We welcome you to our nightly presentations, exciting conversations on taking charge of your mental health as stewardship. We will be covering a diverse number of topics: choices, balancing emotions, process addictions, job stress and finances, destructive patterns, mental health and the family, resilience, forgiveness, and consistency. And we have an amazing team of panelists to help us discuss these topics every night. Tonight, we are discussing self-care, and we are streaming live on South England Conference Media, Stewardship, and Cornerstone Counseling Service YouTube channels. If you have any questions, please put them on the chat, and if you've got any comments. So, Pastor Todd,
Yes, Tembi.
we, we are talking about mental health stewardship. Is there a link? I thought when I grew up, I always thought that stewardship was all about tithing and money.
Oh,
So, what has it got to do with mental health?
well, um, there's one definition of stewardship that I would like our viewers to understand that stewardship is not just all about money, not all about tithe and offerings, but as one author said, stewardship is the wise and unselfish use of life. It's how we actually manage our life. So when it comes to mental health, however we manage ourselves, our mental health, that is very much connected with stewardship, because it's not all just about the things that is around us that we need to look after. This life that we have is something that we really look after. It's the best gift from God.
Wow, how insightful. Can you repeat that definition of yours again about
It's
selfishness?
stewardship. Stewardship is the wise and unselfish use of life.
Wow, very insightful. Now, with us tonight to discuss and share further insights on self care, we have in the studio Hannah Komodo, Dr. Duda, Pastor Juan Carlos, and Busi. Busi is still trying to log on. Oh, she's come on. So I'm going to ask you, our panelists, thank you so much for coming to share your insights about self-care from the different such diverse walks of life you come from. I can imagine the different insightful thoughts you will share with us. Please, can I ask you to introduce yourselves? Just say something to our viewers and listeners about you.
Okay, I will start. I'm Hannah, and I'm a counsellor at Cornerstone Counselling Services. I'm also the receptionist, and I'm also a trauma specialist. I really believe mental health is one of the most important things that we should look after.
Thank you, Hannah.
Okay, I'll go next. My name is Busingube. I am a conflict prevention practitioner, but I have served in the stewardship department at my local church for the past 15 years or so. I'm very passionate about self care, mental health, and overall well being, and the impact that it has on our performance as individuals. And it's a pleasure to be part of this panel tonight.
Thank you, Busi.
My name is Daniel Duda, and I am a father, I am a husband, I am a pastor. In the previous life, I used to teach pastoral psychology, counseling, and care at Newbold College, and right now I am an education director at Trans-European Division. I am glad to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Dr. Duta.
My name is Juan Patrick, and currently I'm serving as the SEC Teens Ministries director. I love working with teenagers, and I am very happy to be here this afternoon. Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you so much. I'm already getting excited from hearing you tell us about yourselves. So we've got a counselor, a trauma specialist, we've got a conflict resolution specialist, we've got two pastors working with teens, teaching psychology and counseling. That is exciting. Let's just dive into it. Busi, can you just give us just a gist of what self-care is all about before we just all discuss it?
Thank you very much, Tembi. I was hoping that we would not get ourselves bogged down with what self care is. I'm not going to give you a professional definition,
Okay.
but I will give you a biblical definition of self care.
Right.
The Bible says, in fact, Christ said, "You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself." So, self care for me is the foundation of how we relate with ourselves and how we relate with others. It is about taking care of our thoughts, taking care of our emotions, our physical well being in a manner that enables us to then engage with the other as a whole human being, a balanced human being, a healthy human being. That's the definition that I would want us to focus on today.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting. So it's all about being a balanced human being. It's about taking care of others as I take care of myself. Any other insights on self-care from our panelists?
So, self care is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. So, if we have the regard for ourselves as God's creation, then we will be able to help others to achieve well being and happiness. But if we don't regard ourselves as God's creation, our ability to minister to others is going to be diminished and hampered. And that's why it is important.
Wow. Any other insights? I'm coming back to you, Dr. Duda, about what you've just said. Let me just hear from other panelists.
I think self-care is actually self-explanatory, like we've just said. It says taking care of oneself. So no matter what the situation, as Pastor and Lucy have both said, it means taking care of oneself every day. So knowing when it's time to kind of just take time out for yourself, knowing when you need time to reflect, that's all part of self-care. Self-care is just realizing, actually, I need a break from what I'm doing at this moment, and taking time out to be with yourself and to be with God.
Now, you've all been talking about self, self, self. But as Christians, isn't that selfish? Is it biblical? I know, Wusi, you kind of touched on a verse about caring ourselves as we care for others. But is it biblical for us to focus so much on ourselves? Doesn't it end up being really selfish? Yet as Christians, we are meant to be serving others.
Sure, but as the flight attendants say, before you can help your child, you need to put the mask on your face.
Yes.
So selfishness is the disregard for the needs of others. So my needs are more important than the needs of others. And there's no question that it's wrong because it leads to hurt and damage in human relationships, environment, etc. But the opposite is also equally bad. If I put the needs of others ahead of my own needs, and I am not even aware of my needs, then I am not going to be able to minister to them. I need to minister from the position of strength, not from the position of weakness.
That's right. That's right.
Wow, I wish we could talk about these sort of things more often in our churches, because so often we burn out because there's so much to do. I just have to be doing more. I just have to be serving others without focusing on me. But Dr. Duda, you've just told us that actually we cannot run on an empty tank.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jesus actually showed us the example throughout his ministry. There were times when he was just so self-aware, he would often pull away from his disciples and the crowds, knowing that he needs time for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. So I think that's our basis for self-care when we think about it.
And
Okay.
and self-care is not a narcissistic attitude, an arrogant disposition that I am the only one that matters here, and that my needs, as Pastor Duda said, are above everybody else. On the contrary, you take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others. You take care of yourself because you understand that if you do not do that, you will not serve others as they deserve. If you don't sleep well, you will not be able to stand up there in the pulpit on Sabbath morning. If you don't take care of yourself, you will not be able to run with your youth or the teens or your children, or you will not be you will not have a mental clarity. If you're putting drugs or alcohol um, or disregarding your sleep, or always, let's say a full diet of junk food, you know that you will not be sharp to bless others, to help others. You will not have the mental clarity to deal with somebody that is suicidal or somebody that is depressed. So you are taking care of yourself because, yes, the Lord will bless you, and through you will bless others. And others that see that you take care of yourself will also be inspired to take care of themselves also. They will say, hey, I need to stop drinking or smoking, or I need to stop going to sleep every day at 3 o'clock in the morning. I met somebody that had the concept that self-care was selfish, and he loved fish, goldfish, like tropical fish and beautiful tank. I also I like them to see how they swim and all the colors. And I asked this person, how much do you love them? They said, a lot. I mean, they are my little babies. And I said, okay, would you put detergent in that tank? Would you put toothpaste and
Wow.
soap.
Wow.
Would you put oil there? No, I wouldn't. Why? Because I love them. So I told this person, think of you as that tank. And
Very
think of
good.
you as this. If you take care of the tank, you will be able to take care of the fish. They will take care of themselves alone. You will see.
Mm.
Think of you as that tank. Don't put anything, don't do anything that would break the glass. And God approves that 100%. If Jesus wouldn't have taken care of himself, he wouldn't have been able to save us.
Mm.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Very insightful. We need to be careful of what we do to our bodies, what we put inside. That's all part of self-care, you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Yes, that goes psychologically, as already all of you have mentioned. That works emotionally, spiritually, physically. And why do we walk? Why do we run? Why do we avoid alcohol or things? Well,
Mm.
because we want to experience the fullness of God's will and blessing on us, and also we want to serve others. The Lord loves us. He loves us very much, and He wants us to love ourselves, to take care of ourselves. We honor God when we take care of ourselves. We are telling Him, "Look, Daddy, what you did is not garbage, and I'm taking care of it."
I like what Pastor Juan have just mentioned, that Christian self-care is actually, it involves almost every aspect of your life: spiritual, mental, physical.
Mm.
And for us, it's a gift from God, isn't it? It is a gift
Yeah.
from God, every aspect of our life. And so by choosing to manage well, by choosing to look after
Mm.
our physical aspect of life, our mental, our spiritual, we are actually what? Honoring God on that. And so it is our joy as Christians to actually give or appreciate the best gift that God have given to us by
Mm.
doing self-care. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Todd. Wusi, do you have more insights?
Well, I think we need to take a couple of steps back and
Right?
look at what are the things that will enable us to really practice good self-care. For me, one of
Right.
the things is you need to have very good self-knowledge. You need to know yourself. You need to know what triggers you towards maybe anger. You need to understand who you are as a human being. You need to understand what are the indicators that show you that now I have reached my threshold in terms of stress, and therefore I need to come away and rest. So self-knowledge is critical. And then with that comes the self-awareness, to be able, as you do life on a day-to-day basis, to tune into yourself and ask yourself, okay, where am I at now emotionally? Where am I at physically? Do I still have the energy and the wherewithal to continue pursuing this task that is set before me? Also have self-awareness as it relates to how you show up in the world and you as you interact with other people. How are you engaging, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the home? And with that, you also then need to focus on self-acceptance. So self-acceptance will enable you to say, even though my colleagues are still pushing and wanting us to work for another 4 hours, I have reached my threshold. And therefore, I need to alert them that I am going to go and take a power nap and then come back and re-engage. So that's where I think all of us need to start. You need to know yourself so well that you would then be able to pick the indicators that now I need to take time out. I did say earlier that self-care is a stewardship issue. And you asked the question, is it not selfish to focus on self-care? But It is not selfish, it is a stewardship issue. As Paul says, know ye not that your bodies are the temple of the living God. So we need to take care of the body temple. And I think that is stewardship 101, stewardship of the body temple. But as we look at the body temple, we also need to focus on the mental aspect, which is what this week is really focusing on. We need to look at the influence of our state of well-being in terms of our physical stature, and how that then impacts and informs our mental wellness and resilience. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 also talks about, it gives us very good counsel. It says, guard your heart diligently, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, I have taken the heart to mean that we need to guard our mind diligently. I like the use of the word diligently. In other words, the Bible is giving us a command, a directive, so to speak, that we need to invest in guarding our minds, guarding our mental well-being. And that is what self-care is all about. To ensure that as we do life, we are doing life from a position of wholeness, a position where we are presenting the best of ourselves to the world, whether it is in the workplace, whether it is in the family. If I am unwell as a mother, if I continue to engage when I know that I am fatigued, it's going to impact on the family dynamic. If I present myself at church knowing full well that there is something that is troubling me, I am not okay mentally, maybe I am worried, maybe I am stressed, whatever the case is, it is going to impact on how I interact with others at church. So self-care becomes really a non-negotiable in terms of how we do life. And I already quoted Mark chapter 12, verse 31, where we are encouraged, again, it's an injunction in my view, that you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. So the Bible expects us to invest in self-care. It expects us to love ourselves. And loving ourselves involves accepting who we are, accepting our backgrounds, accepting the journey that life has taken us on, and embracing who we are in totality. And it's only as we invest sufficiently in self-care that we will become of good use to the society, in our workplace, and in our family. So maybe let me just stop there, Tembi, and ask others to come in, and then we can look at the other aspects of self-care.
Okay. Wow. What I'm hearing from you, Busi, is that self-care actually permeates our whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Even on our identity, who am I? And you touched on self-knowledge and self-awareness. And I said to myself, so what is the difference? In case somebody out there is asking, what's the difference between self-knowledge and self-awareness? Busi or anyone?
I think.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, Hannah, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I think self-awareness is just kind of being able to be aware of who you are and knowing how to take time to reflect on your own actions, your beliefs, and your morals. So that's one of the ways that the self-awareness works. Self-knowledge is more something that's learned, so something that we actually seek the knowledge for. So it sounds exactly the same when you put it out there, but when you think about it, self-awareness is you learn it about yourself on a daily basis, but on the knowledge you seek it to add to the awareness. That's my perception of it.
Right. So knowledge we seek.
Self-knowledge has to do with how we are wired.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that we like. There are certain things that charge our batteries, and there are certain things that deplete our batteries. So if you are an extrovert, being with other people charges your batteries. If you are an introvert, being with other people depletes your batteries. While Self-awareness is being able to process what's going on. I remember when I was a lecturer at Newbolt, one day I came back from the college to the house where I lived, and I saw a dead cat on the sidewalk by the road. And then an hour later or so, my neighbor, and I recognized the cat because it was neighbor's cat. I have seen it many times before. And an hour or so later, he came, and I saw him from the window of my room, how he was digging a little grave in his garden, and he buried the cat. That was Friday afternoon, late afternoon, and then on Sabbath morning, I went to an unnamed church far away. And within 10 minutes of the Sabbath school, I have recognized that, okay, these people have not come here to learn something. This is going to be a wasted time because they already know, they think they know everything. And so it's just rehearsing what we have always believed. And so, being a sanguine, my mind quickly went somewhere else. And suddenly I realized I experienced deep sadness. Now, let me tell you, 10 years before, I would not be even aware of that. And when I started to think, what's going on? This is the self awareness. I realized, okay, it's the mental picture of that dead cat that I have seen roaming around before, now dead, that was causing the sadness inside my soul. And that was the greatest blessing of that Sabbath school class, of that hour, that I realized how sorry I felt for that cat and the neighbor who was just digging a little hole in his garden because he lost that cat. So this is the difference between what's going on inside me, because if you are not aware, you can either overstretch or you can jump on the feet of other people and they feel embarrassed and you hurt them, but you are not even aware of that.
Cindy, can I just come in and buttress this contribution? I mean, I perfectly agree with you that self-knowledge is really understanding who you are, how you are wired as an individual. He's touched on personality, right?
Yes.
Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? And therefore, how does who you are, your basic wiring, for example, then impact your interactions with other people? And that's where you now move from self-knowledge to self-awareness. Knowing what you know about how you are wired and your preferences. For example, I'm not a morning person at all. And whenever I work with colleagues, I always say to them, please, whatever we do, let's not have meetings at crack of dawn. And crack of dawn for me means anything before 9 a.m. But I will gladly work till midnight. Okay, now I'm being intemperate and exposing my lack of temperance, but I will gladly work till midnight. So self-awareness then says, in the morning, when I am completely disengaged in this conversation that I'm having in the workplace, it's a critical conversation. I need to then make extra effort to be engaged, even though this goes against who I am naturally. Self-awareness for me is about recognizing how you are showing up in the world. It is also recognizing your own value system, your perceptions, how it colors how you view the world, and therefore how it's going to inform your interactions with others. At least from my world, this is how I would make the distinction between self-knowledge and self-awareness. Self-awareness also makes you realize that you are not 100% perfect. Just
Yes.
like other people have faults, you also have faults. Just like other people make mistakes, you will also make mistakes. And sometimes you will rub people the wrong way simply because of who you are. And that self-awareness will then help you to be able to say upfront that, guys, I am introverted. So when you see me disengaged from a conversation, it's not that I'm disinterested, but it's just that I need to come back to me to be able to recharge.
Mm. Thank you so much for all your insights. Any other insight on that point before I mention something?
Go on, Tembi.
Okay. Just listening to all of you, I can see how poor self-care can actually lead to mental health problems.
Mm.
So if I don't know who I am, I've got no knowledge of who I am, I'm not aware of who I am, I don't know how to engage others, I might actually struggle to accept myself because I'm looking at everybody and thinking, I wish I was, because I don't know who I am. I've got no knowledge of who I am, right?
Yeah, just as poor nutrition is going to lead to poor health.
Mm.
Somebody said life should be touched, not strangled.
Hmm.
So if you
Wow.
disregard yourself, there is not very much you can give.
Yes.
But Tembi, you've touched on a very important point there. Um, for me, I think the issue is not so much whether one is self-aware or not self-aware, or whether
Mhm.
one knows themselves or not, but it is about self-acceptance. Do
Yes.
you accept yourself?
Mm.
Do you accept that God did not make a mistake when he made you? Do
Mm.
you accept that the journey that you have walked to date is the journey that God intended you to walk or allowed you to walk? And therefore, you are okay even with your imperfections. Because I think a lot of us face challenges when it comes to accepting who we are in totality. So you'll find that a woman will go through life bemoaning the fact that they're a woman. An African like myself will go through life bemoaning that, why was I? And so we tend to focus more on the negative or the seemingly negative or disadvantages of the
Mm.
journey that we have walked. And that's where we start running into problems when it comes to mental health. And this is the point that you were talking about, that we then start comparing ourselves with others and think, oh, why couldn't I have been born in a different country? Why couldn't I have been born to a different parentage? But you know what? If we can all just accept what we were dealt and turn the lemons into lemonade, we would find that God does not make mistakes. He has a very particular reason why He made you the way you are. And if you focus on the advantages of who you are, then you'll be able to thrive and show up in the world as the best version of yourself as you can. Which is why, again, we need to go back to what Pastor Duda mentioned earlier, that we need to recognize that our identity is anchored in whose we are. And so when we know that we are children of the Most High God, we will walk with our heads high, regardless of the circumstances that we find ourselves
Mm. Mm. Thank you for that. That makes me want to ask another question, Busi. Uh, what then are the negative consequences of disregarding self-care? You touched a bit of negatives and positives. Can we talk about that, panel?
in. Okay, so I'll talk about one that most of us as Adventists are guilty of, and that is lack of rest. You know, sometimes we think this, biblical injunction that 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work means we should be laboring 24/7. And you find people don't take time to rest. People don't know when to stop. Something else that I notice which relates to rest is how the world has told us that the more hours you sleep, the higher the likelihood that you will not be successful in life. But thankfully now the world is turning around and realizing that you actually need a full 8 hours of sleep, and all the physiological and chemical processes that take place when we are sleeping in order to revitalize, re-energize, and rejuvenate ourselves. So there are so many negative consequences of lack of self-care. And the other is, so when I am stressed and I am bottling things in and I am not confronting issues when they're actually simmering, will end up leading me to emotional outbursts. And I think we've all experienced this in the workplace, especially, and even in the home, where you approach a colleague or you approach a mother in the home and you just ask a basic question. And then, oh my goodness, you get an avalanche of insults and this and that. And you can actually see that you have just experienced an eruption of a volcano that had absolutely nothing to do with you. But when you then trace back, you will find that this is as a result of someone who has neglected themselves. And let me also mention one of the things that we need to be confident in is confronting or having difficult conversations and having them in a timely manner. But engaging respectfully, but setting boundaries so that we don't then become doormats, which will then end up negatively impacting on our physical health, our emotional health, and our mental health. But I'm sure my colleagues can speak to other negative repercussions of lack of self-care.
Thank you, Lucy.
What Busi said just a while ago, especially about rest, really, really, really struck me.
Yes.
you know, because
Yes.
sometimes if when you see your calendar having so many empty spaces, you said I'm not doing so much, and so you want to fill it in. You want to fill it in up to the point that to a certain degree you don't know that it's already robbing yourself from so many other things that could actually bless your life. It would even distract you from the real purpose of why God have blessed you with time, with energy, with family, with the people around you, because you just want to do this and this and that, and you forget to rest. You forget to
Yeah.
rest. And that reminds me of what Jesus have said, come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some
Mm.
rest.
Yes.
And the point that you mentioned, Pastor Todd, is particularly relevant for us as we do God's work. Right now I am juggling so many balls that have to do with the Lord's work, and I keep wanting to drop a couple of them, and but then you get this sense of guilt that this is God's work, so I can't now go back and say I can't do it. But even with the Lord's work, we must know our limits, right? Otherwise, we'll end up being ineffective right across the board. Whereas if we focus on 2 or 3 things and do them with excellence, we will serve the Lord more effectively than trying to juggle 8 things and being mediocre at all of them.
Okay.
I think that is so true because I think it's Isaac Newton that says, what goes up must come down. So if you're not resting, if you're not eating enough, if you're not doing all of the basic self-care elements, what happens is you're not looking after yourself. And I think we were talking about some of the consequences that follow this. And some of the consequences, just like you said, we have to look at things like low energy, feeling hopeless, less patience, increased headaches, stomach aches, physical symptoms, difficulty staying or falling asleep, challenges in, choosing healthy foods because the urges are to seek comfort foods because we're so tired because we haven't slept the night before, or worsening of like mental health symptoms like depression or anxiety because, like we've spoken about, self-acceptance and understanding yourself and really accepting yourself as who you are. If you don't acknowledge your identity, most of the time it leads to depression and anxiety. Feeling burnt out, I think that's the one you just spoke about, Bussy. If you're not sleeping and you're taking on too many jobs, whether it's at church or anywhere else, of course you're going to be burnt out. And I guess just not being able to concentrate in the situations, that's the one you were talking about as well. What we've got to understand is if we're not taking care of ourselves, there's so many small things that are pulling away from our minds, from our bodies, from all of our being. So what we've got to understand is taking care of ourselves allows us to concentrate better. So if we don't look after ourselves, the difficulty is these are the consequences that we will face.
Thank you, Hannah.
And
Any
this
other insights?
and this activistic spirituality, that somehow subconsciously we feel that if we do more, we are more valuable. We are more valuable to God. We are more valuable
Mm,
to people. It's a form of legalism, of not realizing that God doesn't love us on the basis of our performance. He loves us because we are His daughters, with His sons, His children.
yeah.
And so it's a latent legalism that we have not dealt with. We have not processed well enough on a deeper basis. You
Mm,
know, there are other forms of spirituality. We contemplative spirituality is also important. Serving others, relational, intellectual processing are equally important, but we just see the activistic part and we feel that this is what makes us spiritual. So it's a misunderstanding of what a spiritual uh, being is, and a latent attempt to earn God's approval. And it can have some causes in your early childhood, that you were not good enough for your father, good enough for your mother, or not good enough for God. And
mm,
true religion addresses that and helps us to see that we are valuable because of who we are, not because of what we do. We are human beings, not human robots.
mm, mm. Thank you, Dr. Judah.
In fact, Dr. Duda, you remind me of a song by Lionel Harris. He sang this many, many years ago, I think in the 80s. It's entitled I Miss My Time with You, where
Mm,
God is saying, there's a longing in my heart for you, for me and you to just get together and connect. But you are
mm,
so busy trying to serve me. But how can you serve me when your spirit is empty? Because you are
mm,
not connected with me. And I think part of self care also has to do with taking time out of our human interactions to just spend time with God and just hang out with God and hear Him speak to us and recharge and energize us.
mm.
Somebody said it so well that God gave us 2 ears but only one mouth, because we should
Yes.
listen more than we speak. And
Mm,
similarly, as we grow older, we discover that God gave us 2 hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others.
Mhm.
mm.
And
Wow.
if you are not realizing it, you are not going to be able to help others effectively. And
Mm,
that's why you need to take care of yourself, and that is central to the art of loving. Because if you don't take care of yourself, if you cannot be alone, then you are going to be with others and using your service to others as a way of manipulating them or escape from your personal emptiness
mm.
to earn your value. Look at me, I am doing this.
Yeah.
Jesus says about Pharisees that they like to pray at the corner, they intentionally leave a little bit later so that when the hour of prayer comes, they are not in the synagogue like everybody else. But okay, I am so pious that, it's a time of prayer. I need to pray right now. But Jesus pulls the curtain away and says, no, they just do it in order to earn approval of others. And so
Mm,
their emptiness is unmasked by Jesus and says,
mm,
if you don't know you're standing with God, then you are going to earn brownie points with people so that your significance and self value is enhanced artificially in this way.
mm. Thank you, Dr. Duda. And it's that emptiness that often leads us to helplessness, to discontent, to feeling valueless, because we really don't know who we are. We are just empty. Mm.
Yeah, Tembi, now that is very deep. What you just mentioned is so profound, and I think the lockdown season
Yes.
was like a mirror, huh, to our faces. I don't know about you, but it certainly was like that to me and some of my family members as it relates to church. Because a lot of us had this mistaken understanding that worshiping God is about going to a physical building somewhere, following a particular program that is designed by higher ups. And I think in the first 6 months of lockdown or so, a lot of people felt lost. They felt empty. They didn't know how to observe the Sabbath. So I think part of self-care also is about being able to do life as you without having other people determine how you should do life and program it. But I guess maybe the question then is how does one begin to do this self-care business? I know we're talking about the spiritual aspect, the physical aspect, the emotional aspect. Um, in my view, I think the spiritual is the foundation. It is the bedrock of everything. It is about recognizing, as I said earlier, whose I am and what that owner expects of my life. And I think as Adventists, it's so unfortunate. We have the Bible, we have the rhetoric, but we have not lived that rhetoric, you know. So for me, I think the very basic steps of self-care is going back to the Bible and understanding what God says about each and every one of us. You know, David says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So it is about believing and accepting that regardless of what I look like, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I am made in the image of God. It is also really coming back to all the beautiful promises that are in the Bible about how God is able to take care of us. You know, we so easily recite, take no thought for tomorrow. If God cares for the little sparrows, he will take care of us. But do we know how to apply that in our lives? So for me, I think really it's about investing in developing that unshakable trust in God. And if we face adversity, to be able to, like David, encourage ourselves in the Lord. Then the second layer above that is, for me, is the physical. Again, as a church, we have been blessed with the health message. We have been blessed with the 8 laws of health or celebrations. We were given through the pen of inspiration how we should do life. But sadly, we are not implementing. And so when we don't take care of our physical health as God prescribed us to, we run into a lot of problems. And the one aspect that I really want to focus on is nutrition. Again, as Adventists, we have the best nutrition blueprint. But guess what? We spend so much time arguing amongst each other. Is meat eating a salvific issue or not? Is the Bible really saying people shouldn't drink alcohol? And sadly, the world is now coming up and telling us that the plant-based diet is the optimal diet if you want to perform at your peak. And I'm even talking about the spiritual aspect, just peak performance of this machine that was created. And so for me, if you can invest in the spiritual, the physical, you'll find that you will have 1/3 of the battle as it relates to your emotional well-being. Because again, now science is proving the connection between our nutrition and our emotional well-being and our
Yes.
emotional well-being. Yeah?
Yes.
Connection between our physical well-being and our emotional well-being. So the fitter and healthier you are, the more emotionally resilient you will be. And so really, I think that's what we really need to, let's go back to basics. Just believe, take God at his word, invest in living our health message, and then putting trust in God as it relates to all these things that bring us so much the emotional turmoil.
Mm. Thank you for that, Wusi. That was actually going to be my next question, to say, okay, we now know the value of self-care, and so where do we begin? And you have said we start with spiritual nurturing, as far as you are concerned. How about the rest of the panelists? What do we think? Where do we begin with this huge self-care issue that we said actually influences our whole life? We spoke about lack of sleep, boundaries. We spoke about its impact on our health. We feel guilty when we don't work, and we're saying, no, put all that aside. Do self-care. Where do I begin, panelists?
I would
Okay.
like to share this thought that I share with the teens. It's not mine. It's actually written by somebody called Patrick, by the way. Yes, but his name
Oh.
is Shan Patrick, and he says this: "Do something today that your future self will thank you for
Mm,
today." Um, um,
I
uh,
like that quote.
yes, I will repeat it. It says, "Do something today that your future self will thank you for." So when
Mm,
you are over 50 or 60, you will tell yourself, hey, thank you for doing that on that day. Thank you for deciding this.
mm,
Just this morning, I was reading a report from the Mayo Clinic saying that lack of sleep is leading to retaining fat, actually in the visceral size of the belly, and that putting your mobile on your face before going to sleep, like chatting or checking websites, etc., affects the melanin in your
yes.
and other hormones that help you to sleep. So
Mm-hmm.
the pastor who baptized me told me a few days ago somebody was, you know, a leader in a conference somewhere, and he didn't know what was the meaning of resting, and
Mm,
he got sick and he kept working, and he was hospitalized and he kept working from his room in the hospital, and chatting from there and texting from there and giving orders and so on and so forth, and he died. All the pastors went to the funeral, and after the funeral, when they went to Pizza Hut and elected a new president. Exactly
yes.
like that. Because I know that not only church people are watching now, there are many people that are non-church people, yeah, and but in the case of the church will keep on going. If you die, they will replace you on Monday, or maybe not on Monday. There is a long line of people waiting for your position. And remember that you are not unique. And yes, you are unique in the sense that God created you. But what I mean is, if we die for not taking care of ourselves, you will be replaced
Yeah.
in half an hour. So, where do we begin? Today. Today, I need to decide that I matter, that I am important for the Lord, that there are people who love me, that I have the right to exist and to live, to have peace and health, and that today, regardless of whatever circumstances are around me, whether they are positive, human, spiritual, or whatever it is, Jesus gave me the right. Jesus gave it, he died so that I may live.
Mm,
And that today I will honor that by taking care of myself. Um, Even if it is starting today by doing something little as simple as putting a schedule. I will go to sleep earlier today,
mm,
or I will not consume whatever it is, or I will stay away from people that are being toxic and detrimental, or as it has been already mentioned by all of you, I will be more aware of things that are hurting me, whether they are food or they are spiritual or they are human, whatever it is. Probably today I can start taking a look at reading a little bit more about how to take care of myself. There is a lot of material in YouTube and Google.
mm,
To drink more water, to take more sunshine, to eat more vegetables, to eat less junk food, to eat more greens and vegetables, to walk, to do a little bit more of exercise, and to trust more the Lord. Maybe today we can start even to choose one of these things and start doing them today. To be more aware, as you already have mentioned, of the things that are hurting me: companies, conversations, things, people, movies, commercials, magazines. To be more aware and to listen to my body when my body says, I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Close everything and just go, to listen. Maybe today I can decide to listen more to my body, to be more aware of my capabilities. Not everybody, yes, I mean, I'm not contradicting what has been said. I agree 100% of what has been said, but not everybody that works hard is showing off or is empty inside. Some people work hard because they are gifted with more energy, and maybe you can work 4 hours and they can work 12 hours, but if it is 12 hours, then be aware that you can only work 12. Don't work 24. Don't work 18. You don't need to surprise, as Pastor Duda has said, impress anybody. God already loved you before you were born, so you don't have to do anything to impress him. So maybe today we can start doing something. Which tomorrow, when I am bold and with a little big belly, I will say, hey, thank you very much for doing that on that day, man. I feel better today. Maybe today. Let's do something today.
Actually, that quotation is full, is pregnant. So often the choices that we make today impact our health in the future. We become angry because of the wrong choices we made. We also impact other people's lives negatively. So it's not only our future self not thanking us, it's those around us as well that we are impacting negatively. Yes. And you also mentioned about things that are hurting us. You mentioned a variety of things. Sometimes we don't even realize that staying on the internet all the time hurts us. And so those are deep topics. It's like as we are talking, I'm just realizing how much more is involved in self-care. How many topics can just come out of self-care? So thank you. Any other comments on that one?
And as God is trying to teach Elijah when he talks nonsense, take my life, I am not better than any of my ancestors. God just let him sleep and provide some wholesome meal for
Yes.
him. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to take a nap
Mm. Mm.
That I like that.
and have a good
Yeah.
meal. And
And
God
it's amazing.
understands.
Yeah. It's amazing what that power nap does. Absolutely amazing.
But Hannah wanted to say something.
Go on,
Yes,
Hannah.
I was just going to say it's so nice to kind of hear how we've all Pussy and Pastor, you've covered the spiritual side and the body part, but I think we also have to look at our thoughts. It says in the Bible, whatever a man thinketh, he is. So I think
Yes.
looking at your thoughts and actually taking care of your thoughts as well, which requires sometimes just taking a break, realizing, okay, I might be feeling a bit sad in this. What's making me feel sad about the situation? What can I do to make myself feel better? Or what can I do to present my best self, as we've been saying? Our thoughts really affect how we behave in certain situations. So being aware of our thoughts is a very big thing. And just as Pastor, you said, do something today, you can do something today. Yesterday, I was listening to some young people online and they were talking about our vision boards necessary. And at first I was like, well, if you have a vision, you don't really need a vision board. But as they kind of spoke, I thought, wow, actually, I actually believe that vision boards are necessary. Because for instance, if you go away today listening to us and you make like a mind map and you say spiritually, this is what I'm going to do. You've started something spiritually. If you make and then you kind of say physically, this is what I'm going to do. You started maybe having a nap. maybe eating well. And if you put in your thoughts, every time I think of something negative, I'm going to think of the opposite and make it something positive so that it can resonate in my life. I think that's one of the other ways that we can take care of ourselves in our thoughts mentally as well.
Yeah, if I can just come in and yeah, also
Thank you, Anna.
lend my voice to what Hannah has just said. I think Hannah, it's much broader than just the thoughts, hey? It's also these conversations, the monologues that we have in our heads
Yes, with
about
yourselves.
whatever we are going through. And psychologists will tell you that oftentimes, especially as we try and process negative events that are about to happen or just happened, we tend to judge ourselves so harshly and blame ourselves for everything that happened. And so I think we also need to be stewards, good stewards of these conversations that we have in our heads. And actually, sometimes to just pray and ask the Holy Spirit, just help me to stop thinking about this, especially dwelling on the past. It's done, right? And so, no matter how many hours you spend processing it, turning it upside down, it's not going to change anything. But also about conversations that we have about the future, which we don't know. People get so hung up about what if I lose my job during this post-COVID period? What am I going to do? And they get into a frenzy about, so now, okay, so for you guys who live in the West, you have mortgages, right? In my part of the world, we don't have mortgages. You have to find the cash and take it to the seller and, buy the house. But you get people now saying, okay, so I will miss my mortgage repayment. And after I miss 3 of them, they'll repossess the house. How am I going to tell my wife? And all this has a bearing on our emotional state and on our physical state. And then it has a bearing on how we interact with others. So Hannah, thank you very much for raising that. But I also want to touch on something else that you mentioned, vision boards and goals. A lesson that I learned during the lockdown period is, again, sometimes we can become slaves to these things. Yeah? Because now you're saying, okay, it was my goal to buy myself, to take my family on an exotic holiday. Now lockdown has happened. What's going to happen? It's year 1, year 2, now I'm off target with my goal. You know what? I've come to realize that men plans, but God, how is that? Okay, but basically what I'm trying to say is that let's not become enslaved to these things. Let's realize and internalize that God has the perfect plan for our lives. And sometimes that plan will mean none of our goals are achieved. We will look at that vision board and feel like absolute failures. But let's not look at the vision board and become enslaved to what we had designed. Let us submit ourselves to the will of God in our lives and see Him come through for us. I was listening to a song that talks about the story of Joseph as I was driving back to my city today. And this artist says that when Joseph was being cast into that pit, he didn't realize that the pit was his way to the palace and to power. But I can assure you that when he was in the pit, he didn't have very kind words to say about God. And yet that was God's vehicle for taking him to the palace. So let us also not become too enslaved to our own plans, such that we end up resisting the will of God in our lives.
Thank you for that, Busi. Any other insights from our panelists? Maybe before we go back to the panelists, Pastor Todd, do we have any questions or comments from the listeners and viewers so that we plan our time?
Well, I don't see any at the moment, but I hope we will be able to get some later on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can come back to our panelists. Thank you, Busi.
Well, I just want to backtrack a little bit. There's a word that really gets stuck in my mind. I think you did mention that, Tembi, a while ago. The word empty, and then Busi have followed it up with the spiritual, the physical, and Hannah, the mental thoughts. Um, if your question is really on where do I begin, one
Yes.
one of the things that we would always promote as pastors, especially on the point of view, is for us to spend the first moment of each day with God. Now, if there's anyone, if we feel empty, and Jesus have showed us this way, after his day's work, he would always go to the mountains, spend the evening with God, and even early morning he is communing with God. And so I'm just thinking, if we make God a priority, a
Mm.
real priority in our life, that's I think that's the top Christian self-care tips that we could actually give to people. And that actually reminds me of that if we remain in Christ, of course we would be nourished. We would be nourished. We would know what to do, how to react to different things that would come our way, the different challenges, because God would surely give us the wisdom. And I remember the word of God in Jeremiah that says they will be like tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the streams. It does not fear what? It does not fear when heat comes. It leaves, they are always green. So many challenges, so many questions that would come our way. But if we take God or make God the priority in our life and allow Him, because He's the only one who could actually fill us up.
Yes.
There's a song, Busi have mentioned several songs earlier, but there's a song that I always loved to sing when I was younger. The song "Oh Fill It Up," "Oh fill it up, and let it overflow." It's something that I believe if we desire to be filled, if we desire to know how to handle and manage ourselves well, we need to
Mm.
come to the source, and that's God. And so making Him priorities is very important.
Can I just
Mm.
add to that in terms of making God our priority? I think one thing that we don't do enough of is be thankful or grateful for what God has done for us.
Being grateful.
Yes,
Yes.
the gratitude. I think if sometimes we were to kind of just stop for one day and look back at how far God has brought us, where He's brought us
Mm.
from, we would realize that God is our power source. God is our everything. And I
Mm.
think being able to realize that and be thankful, that is a powerful thing.
Mm. Mm. Thank you, Pastor Todd and Hannah. Uh, that has raised the question in my head. I can't remember who said top self care is time with God. What do we get from having time with God that nourishes us, that makes us care for ourselves? Why should it be a top priority? We know, yes, God does a lot of things, but what does spending time with Him do for us?
Okay, so this is Stewardship Week, right? And if you're a steward every day, you have a morning briefing with your boss, and you lay out the plans for the day, and you say who is coming, who is going to do this, and so that's what spending time with God is all about too. We are connecting with the source of life. We are connecting with the who, our boss, but he's more than a boss. He's a father to us, right? And he loves us to spend time with him. But as we spend time with him too, the hymn says, turn your eyes upon Jesus. And as you do so, the things of the world will grow strangely dim. So all these problems that we struggle with so much, as we spend time with God, you will find that somehow he will speak to our situations. But Pastor Todd, I also want to say that, so many times we equate spending time with God to doing the daily reading for the day, or reading whatever devotional we are reading, and then saying a prayer and leaving. It is about having an extended conversation with God, a true connection, and emptying all of you to Him, but also waiting for Him to speak to you. He speaks through the Bible, but He also speaks through impressions of the mind. And then He will also speak to us through other people. So it is not just a quick, okay, I've read Numbers 3 for today, I've said my little prayer, and I've sung Lord in the morning. It is much deeper than that.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you for that, Lucy.
As you go through life, you certainly will find some people who are going to cheer you, mostly because they want something from you. And as you go through life, you are going to make some enemies who are after you. And when we spend time with God, it's not about that time, it's about having a relationship with someone who is able to tell you the truth that you need to hear so gently, who knows when you need to be cheered up and said things are not as bad as it may seem to you, as he said to Elijah. You might think I am the only one who is on your side. Let me tell you, I know about 7,000 others that you know nothing about. And also, God is someone who can tell you things you don't want to hear in such a gentle way that it brings you forward. So the purpose is not to spend the time, the purpose is to grow. Now, you cannot grow without spending time, of course, but as Busy mentioned, people feel that, okay, I have read the chapter, I have done my reading, I have done this, I am set, I have done my checklist, I am now freed, off to go. But the purpose is not for you to go through the Bible, the purpose is for the Bible to go through your mind.
Wow, I like that. The purpose is for the Bible to go through my mind and transform me.
Don't read the whole chapter if 2 verses will do. And of course, let me tell you, there are days when reading the phone directory would seem more blessing than reading the Bible. But that's part of life. That's part of living in this world. And so it's this way of processing reality. It's not that, let me add one more duty to you. You need to talk to God. And as Busy mentioned, if you have a boss, he's going to ask about the day, but a good boss is going to ask, and is what you did today strategic to what we try to achieve? Because
Right.
otherwise, once again, we are only promoting busyness so that, did you do your duties today? And I remember when my son worked in Oxford, he used to say, Dad, you spend time with this team, and at the end of the day, every one of us needs to say how what we did today was strategic to what we are trying to achieve as a team. And he said to me, you can imagine that you grow if you are in an environment like that. And so God is more interested in your growth than he's interested in your comfort. Yes, he will tell you things that you and I need to hear to comfort us when we are down, to pick us up. But because he's interested in our growth, he's also going to tell us things that we don't want to hear, but we need to hear them.
Yes. Yeah. That is so profound, Dr. Duda. So our goal is growth, not how many pages we read, not the ritual or thinking about what my mom would say if they heard I wasn't reading my Bible. The goal is growth in our relationship with God. for us to become more Christ-like as the Bible goes through us. Wow, I like that. Because it's real. You know, this guilt of not reading your chapter a day on, it's real. Sometimes you just feel, okay, maybe let me just read, even if I'm not understanding, I'm just rushing. Isn't the Bible says that God will bring to remembrance when I need it? So maybe let me just read, and then God will bring it to my remembrance in time of need. It's real, this guilt. So I really appreciate that valuable point of, it's not about going through chapters, it's growth in our relationship with Christ, in our goal of being Christ-like. Thank you. Thank you for that. We have how many minutes left, Pastor Todd?
We have less than 15 minutes.
Okay, we have less than 15 minutes left. What would you say? Do we have questions or comments? I haven't seen any.
I haven't seen any as well.
Yes, we have quite a few questions in on the YouTube page. Okay,
Okay.
so
Oh,
one, maybe it says it may not be easy to disengage because of a particular stressful situation, stress that drives us and drains us. How can we disengage when it seems life depends upon engagement with life problems? That's the
can we
question.
answer that one, panel? Did we understand it, or we want Hannah to read it again?
Shall I read it again?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. It says it may not be easy to disengage because of particular stressful situations, stress that
Right?
grips us and drains us. How can we disengage when it seems life depends upon engagement with life problems?
How can we disengage when it seems like we have to engage with life's problems?
I mean, it depends what are we dealing with. So yes, there are stressful situations that you respond best to with direct action. If you put it off, it's going only to get worse. If you anticipate certain stressful events, your body is going to experience less panic. But this idea that I can't disengage because I am so important is not going to bring the self care and the required response that you expect. So, just as we need to learn to rest without guilt, as we mentioned, because it's some kind of legalism, so we need to learn to disengage. That's what God is trying to teach us with the fourth commandment. I mean, when it has ever happened that you finished all your work on Friday afternoon? My work is never finished. I always
Doesn't.
have emails in the inbox that I have not answered. I have phone calls which I have not made, etc., etc. But God says the Sabbath does not start when it fits you. When you have finished all your work, the Sabbath starts when God says that it starts. Because He's trying to teach
Wow.
me, Daniel, what matters in life is not what you do. Leave it aside, learn to have work unfinished, and let's spend the next 24 hours in a communion together because you have been created for me. That's what God is trying to teach Adam and Eve in the garden. Environment cannot make you happy. Eve cannot make you happy. Adam cannot make you happy. You have been created for a relationship with me. And so learning to disengage is a way of learning our creatureliness, our limits, that we need God, and you can undo by overdoing. That by working more and trying to achieve more, we are actually achieving less. And so
Yes.
it's all part of this package of self-care, and have a proper relationship with yourself, with God, with others, and with the stressful environment in which we live. If there is no stress, you are going to die. If it's too much stress, it's going to kill you as well. And so, how do
Yes.
we engage with this?
I'm following what Pastor Duda is saying. To the person that is asking this, although it may sound simple, just do it. Just turn off that phone. Do it, and you will see that when you wake up next morning, the world will still be going around. No business will stop. They will
Yeah.
not declare a panic attack in in World Trade Center, or the you will see that the systems of businesses will not collapse. You will be surprised to see that the world kept running without you. So just do it. During the pandemic, all this bad news and all these situations and the amount of deaths that were coming every day, I was receiving phone calls of friends and family and loved ones who passed away. And I was sat there and was thinking, there is one thing I can do. I will need to close the gate. I will need to say, you know what? It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to sleep. There was a moment that were so much deaths that were coming, and Tembi knows because she was with me all along the journey. Um, that one I remember when the pandemic was raging, and it was about 54 friends that had died at that time,
Mm.
childhood
Yeah.
friends. Right there in that corner, I knelt down and said to the Lord, Lord, if they are living, if they are sleeping, if they are dying, I am sure that a God of mercy and love like you took care of everything before they left this place, this world, and that I will see my friends again.
Mm.
I entrust all my friends and my family in your hands. And
Mm.
everything that will happen or may happen, I will trust you, Lord, God Almighty, of love and compassion, that you
Mm.
have taken care of everything even before it happened. And I
Yeah.
went to sleep,
Mm.
you know. And the deaths didn't stop, the problems didn't stop.
Mm.
Tembi knows, and she can tell you, nothing stopped. However, at that moment, even when I didn't see it or felt it, I decided to trust. I didn't feel like trusting, and I didn't feel like doing it, and I was not singing alleluias and joyful hymns. No, I was crying, but I decided I am going to trust you,
Mm.
Lord. So to this person, um, that just simply say, "How can I do it?" I will invite you. Just do it.
Mm.
That's junk news. You know, when your body says go to sleep, go to sleep. Turn off that mobile phone. Trust more in the Lord. Just say, Lord, you know what? I don't feel like trusting you. It looks like it's going to be a difficult morning to tomorrow, but I will trust you. I believe that you have everything in order, and that your Holy Spirit will prevail. The other
Mm.
thing that you can do is on something that I did also was, and I read in a wonderful book that you will love entitled How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie, and is in YouTube. It's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, and the author is Dale Carnegie. The title doesn't do justice to the content. It's a treasure. Um, and he says there, write down the things that you're going to do tomorrow and just review them before going to sleep, or the night before, make this phone call, make this thing, make that, and try to do as much as you can next day, um, so you know where you're going. But remember, as Pastor Duda said, no, we are not, we are important, of course, but if you go to sleep on time and if you rest and if you turn off the phone, you will see that the world will keep going. So just do it. Decide it today. Just do it today.
Mm.
Decide today.
Thank you. We've got 5 minutes left. Hannah, you said there are a couple of questions. Can
Yes.
we try and see what we can do?
Okay. The first one is there a point in one's life when self care is adequate or, on the other hand, inadequate? And how does one's self awareness ensure adequate self care? Shall I repeat that one?
Yes, please.
It says, is there a point in one's life when self care is adequate or or on the other hand, inadequate? And how does one's self awareness ensure adequate self care?
Who can answer that quickly for us? Is there a time when self care is adequate?
Different people process things differently. So if you are frustrated trying to help other people, if you have a sense that you want to run away from it all, if your family is suffering, then you do not have adequate self-care,
Mm,
and you need more.
yeah.
There's another question. It says, what is a vision board and why is it used?
Didn't hear
Quickly,
that.
somebody, yes. Thank you.
What is a vision board and why is it used?
Okay, so Hannah, you are the vision board expert here, but I'll have to go. So a
Okay.
vision board basically is all of us. Okay, most of us now believe in the concept of setting goals, right? So, for example, if my goal is to go to Phuket on holiday, then what I would do is I'll take a photo of one of the beaches in Phuket, right? And I'll stick it on a board so that I see it every day. And the concept is as you see it, it's going to keep you on track as you work towards that goal. But then the world also believes, we've all heard about the law of attraction, that as you see something, it's okay. Let me use another example. You know, when you're thinking of buying a car, right? And you want to buy a Mercedes Benz C63 AMG Sport, right? You take a photo of this thing and you put it on your wall or wherever your vision board is. Oftentimes, as you drive down the road, you'll start seeing every other car is that vehicle. So
Yes.
a vision board is a visual impression of the goals that you are working towards. It could be even goals about your physical well-being. You want to lose weight. So you take a photo of yourself when you were 15 and you say, I want to go back to that weight. Or it is about an executive position that you're aspiring for in your workplace. And so you take a photo of yourself with the title managing director and you post it there. That's what a vision board is. It's really to just help you keep focused on your goals and also help accelerate the attainment of your goals. But Hannah, you can add.
So I was just going to add, as well as your goals, it also gives you something visual to attain to. Because, like we're saying in the morning when you wake up, if how you're going to think positive thoughts if you can't see some positive thoughts, how you going to remember I need to engage with God if there's nothing reminding you. So we're kind of looking at people who may feel really down. So sometimes being able to see something visual that says, actually, this is my routine for the day. I speak to God first. And then I get on with my hygiene and making sure I'm eating that kind of thing. It helps you to be able to see your goals for the rest of the day. That's all. I think that's all of the
Thank you.
questions.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, our time has slipped into eternity and we have to finish. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of Pastor Todd and myself to thank you all. It's really been so insightful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we are back tomorrow at 7 o'clock when we are looking at choices with another team of panelists. We are going to ask Pastor Todd to close for us in prayer.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Shall we pray? Lord God, Heavenly Master, we would like to praise you and thank you for giving us this wonderful opportunity to be with all of our viewers, to be with Busi, with Daniel, with Patrick, with Hannah, with Tembi here, the studio, oh Lord, for us to talk about, have a dialogue, a conversation on self care. We know, Lord, that there's a lot more things that we could talk on this subject, but I pray, oh Lord, dear Heavenly Father, that you will continue to give each one of us the wisdom, the understanding, also the love to look after this life that you have given to us and to show gratitude to you being our creator and being our God. May we be able to manage ourselves well, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And through God's grace, oh dear Heavenly Father, we could give back the honor to you. Bless each one of us for today. And as we welcome the Sabbath, may your presence continue to be with each one of us. Thank you, Jesus, for loving us. Amen.
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 Thank you once again to all our panelists and our viewers. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.
And remember, an empty lantern provides no light. Self care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly.
Wow. Wow. That's
That's
a great quotation. Please put it in the chat. That's
yeah.
amazing. And another one I picked is the Sabbath does not start when it suits you. It starts when God says it starts. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye, everyone.